So hello everybody, thanks for coming. I'm Councillor Cassandra Brown, I'm Chair of the Education and Local Economy Scrutiny Commission, and I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Please note that we're not a decision-making body. This Commission's role is to make recommendations for consideration by the Southwark Council Cabinet. There are no planned fire alarm tests this evening, so if you do hear a fire alarm, please leave by the nearest fire exit and make your way to the agreed assembly point, which is at St John's Churchyard off Druid Street. Council security staff will direct you there if need be. If anyone needs the toilet tonight, they are located off the main reception area just outside here. And please do switch your mobile phone to silent if you haven't already while in the meeting room. Members of the public here tonight are allowed to film, record, photograph or tweet the public proceedings of the meeting if they wish, but I would ask you to please be considerate towards other people in the room and don't disturb the proceedings. And if you are filming the meeting, please don't film anybody in the audience. There is a copy of the Council's protocol for reporting and filming on the Council website, should anyone wish to read that. If anyone would like to get onto the internet, the Wi-Fi here is called Southwark Free Wi-Fi and it doesn't need a password to access. The meeting is being live streamed via the Microsoft Teams platform to YouTube and will be uploaded to the Southwark Council YouTube channel by tomorrow. If any members here tonight on the Commission wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait until I've given you permission to speak before contributing. And just a reminder, as always, could all members and officers or anybody speaking keep the microphone close and speak directly into it, because we've had previous issues with sound levels online. And finally, in terms of the housekeeping, can I ask members to refrain from discussing issues that are not pertinent to the agenda, keep comments and questions concise and specific to the agenda item being discussed. With that in mind, we do have quite a meaty agenda tonight. I am keen to try and finish this meeting by 9 p.m, which could be ambitious, but if everybody is happy to support me in that endeavour, I would be very much appreciative. Okay, so in terms of the agenda for tonight, first up we have apologies. I have apologies for lateness from Councillor Hanvas. Do we have any other apologies? With Councillor Hanvas, will we be quorate tonight? We're already quorate, that's great. Okay, cool. So in terms of confirmation of voting members, please can voting and non-voting members present here show their hand or respond verbally when their name is called out. Councillor Bentley.
I'm here and I'm a voting member.
Thank you. Yeah, your name and your role would be great. Councillor Sunil Chopra. Okay, he's not here. Councillor Yousef Hussain.
Councillor Yousef Hussain for Newington Ward.
Councillor Ivina von Wies.
Also here, Councillor for Barnbank Ward.
Martin Bracknell.
Martin Bracknell, Diocese of Southwark.
Jonathan Clay.
Present and parent Governor representative.
Thank you. Okay, so on to agenda item 2, which is notification of any items of business which the chair deems urgent. I have none. Vice Chair, anything from you? No, okay, wonderful. So agenda item 3, disclosure of interests and dispensations. Does any member wish to declare any interests or dispensations in respect of any item of business that we're considering tonight? Okay, wonderful. Agenda item 4, so the minutes. Now, the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of November and 4th of February are to follow in the coming weeks. So I have spoken with officers about the delay here, and as I understand it, there has been a transition of responsibilities within the scrutiny team, which has led to this delay. What we do have tonight, however, is a draft list of recommendations from the Commission over the last year, and it was deemed more important that we brought those tonight, given where we're at in the year, and that meeting minutes follow. Agenda item 5, this is where we're starting to get into the substantive agenda items for the evening. So first up, we have youth employment support. So I'd like to welcome Councillor John Batterson, Cabinet Member for Climate Emergency, Jobs and Business, and also Nick Wolfe, Employment and Skills Manager at Southwark Council. So John and Nick, you have around 10 to 15 minutes, preferably 10 if possible, to share an overview of why you're here and what you're presenting on. I believe we do have a paper from the two of you, so I will take that as read. So please do stick to the top line points. And just to say that really we wanted to bring this topic to the Commission tonight because youth employment support is in the Council's delivery plan. Perhaps we could be doing more. So we're really keen to hear from you what you've been up to and what else you're planning to do. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor John Batson, Cabinet Member for Jobs and Business. I think the why is quite important here. You touched on that introduction. But essentially, when we talk about a strong, fair economy, which everyone feels that they can benefit from, which is a key theme within Southwark 2030, and what we're talking about there, we're talking about those who are most vulnerable, the ones who face the highest barriers to jobs or being able to set up their own business. We're also talking about the next generation of people, that is particularly our young people. And so that is why it's important. And it also touches on two of the themes which this commission obviously looks very closely at. I've got Nick here, who I'll ask to introduce himself in a moment, who works in our local economy team. But this also sits across different departments and agencies within the council. Definitely local economy, education, youth services, corporate parenting when we talk about care leavers. So there's a whole raft of different agencies and departments within the council who have a role in focusing on delivering this, which is obviously really important. The other bit, just to reference, is that the council can't do this alone. When we talk about creating opportunities, opening up pathways to different jobs, it certainly has a role to play in terms of how to create apprenticeships within the council and internships through our graduate or school leavers internship programme. But the council is never going to have enough jobs and opportunities for young people. And frankly, they probably wouldn't all want to work for the council. So what's important is that we're able to partner with organisations and employers right across Southwark who are able to offer those types of jobs and opportunities that young people want. And the report, as you mentioned, I'll take it as read, but what we have tried to do is structure it in a way which focuses on the type of support which is available for young people groups, so specifically those with special educational needs and disabilities, also those who have been through our care leavers and been through the care system, but then also what is the kind of overarching offer that we have for all young people in Southwark. Growing up here, might be slightly unsure about their pathways and which direction they want to go in, and what's included in there hopefully is on some of the things maybe that I probably reference through the report, but I think we need to. I think we could have a clearer offer, frankly, about this. So when and thinking particularly about what is it that we can do as a council, what is our role in this? I think our role, frankly, is thinking about how we can better signpost young people to those jobs and opportunities that are available now, and also making sure that they understand the pathways that they need to go through in different sectors. And I think there's a really good opportunity here. I've spoken to the Youth Parliament, and they frankly tell me, the way that they engage with content now, especially when it comes to jobs and careers, is not actually the way in which we provide communication. So in the report, you'll see information about a e-newsletter, essentially a kind of monthly bulletin, which highlights some of the jobs and opportunities that we're aware of. Young people, they're not engaging with e-newsletters at the moment, frankly. I mean, some of them are signed, they're signed up to it. It gets fairly decent open rates and readership. I think there's a really good opportunity here, thinking about the work of the comms team, who I know are doing some really great work in terms of how you create really engaging content that goes out on different platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and other social media channels. How you can create that type of content to really engage young people. I think that is an opportunity for us. And And I think the other thing that I'll just finish on is that in the paper we outlined the Southwark Skills Partnership, which is something that I chair. It's made up of different employment support agencies, colleges, some of the big employers in Southwark, essentially to talk about how we can really deliver on our skills delivery plan. And some really good work on that. But I actually think that is a good mechanism for us to bring people together who are quite informed and knowledgeable about youth employment, and just think about how we can, I think, bring all the things that are outlined in this report together so that young people feel like opportunities on their doorstep are more accessible to them. So I think it's probably not referenced clearly in the report, but I think the comms bit, how we communicate more effectively about the various opportunities and pathways available to young people is an opportunity. And the other bit is how we tap into some of the intelligence that we know exists with some of the organisations that we work really closely with in Southwark to just think about how we package this in a more accessible way. I'll introduce Nick and see if he's got anything to add to my introduction.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you. Really not an awful lot to add to a very comprehensive overview of what we do. I suppose to say a bit about the local economy team and where we sit in this, because we're a fairly key team in delivery of some of these services. Our role is about commissioning and delivering services for young people post-school age. So we work closely with education, who obviously are supporting people post 16 to 18, but kind of post-school, post-education age, and supporting through our main programme is obviously Southwark Works, which is the employment support programme that we commission and supports Southwark residents in general, but including young people, particularly young people who are facing particular barriers to work, with some specialist support. We look to fill gaps outside of that, so programmes that came out of previous work around things like the Southwark Youth New Deal, like the internships programme. We lead on apprenticeships generally and kind of driving apprenticeship numbers around the council delivery plan commitment to deliver apprentices over this 4-year period, which has been a long-standing commitment of the council to drive apprenticeships across the borough and opportunities for our residents. The skills partnership, I think, is another really key area which has been mentioned, but just to kind of elaborate a little bit, that's convened by the team, chaired by the cabinet member, and it really brings together as much as possible all our skills providers, further education, higher education, private sector providers, some of our largest employers, schools representatives, volunteering community sector, and we have that wide-ranging conversation about the skills needs in Southwark. So we're talking about sectors, and we're talking about growing sectors and the key sectors for the future, and making sure that our young people are aware of and have access to pathways into those over the long term. And so that's not so much necessarily about us, the council, doing stuff, but bringing partners together, spotting gaps, spotting opportunities, and trying to build out a delivery plan in place, which we're working through over the current period. And finally, yeah, the comms piece is really important. So there's much more to do on that, and we're aware of that, and it's being worked on. But there's out of the last kind of New Deal work, there was both the One Hub and the Youth Opportunities Bulletin, the e-bulletin. Both work reasonably well, can work better, and I think we need to kind of look at the reach and other. We have some great opportunities.
Ian, thank you. That was really helpful, and thanks for a very comprehensive report. I must say it's really great, and it's good to have all of this laid out in the different themes. I think it's very clear that the council's doing some great work on integrating with the relevant agencies and partnerships, and clearly you've got a good strategy in place around comms. Just first of all, I think that a few gaps I've noticed, and it may be that I've missed them, but consultation with young people around kind of what they want to see in some of these pieces, KPIs and measurements, and how you're actually going to be tracking progress and the success of some of these initiatives. and also kind of thinking about impending government policy around this issue. So like one of the things I'm thinking about is the right to work stuff that's been coming out recently, and kind of is the council looking ahead to some of that stuff and thinking about how it's going to plan for that. So those three areas I think I'd really like us to kick off with, and then I'll open up to the rest of the commission.
I can start and then I'll bring Nicky. I think that there has been that in terms of where we got to with the youth deal. There was a lot of consultation with young people, and out of that was the One Hub platform. It's a really, I think, a great opportunity there in terms of a digital platform which has not just opportunities in there, but opportunities for young people more generally, but there's a specific area for jobs and opportunities, for training opportunities for young, which I think we can utilise better than we. The second bit was around KPIs, which probably, I mean, we've got council delivery plan commitments, which maybe haven't come out as much in there. But I mean, obviously, we've got an apprenticeship target to be on just over 1,000.
Could you speak into the mic a little bit more?
Sorry, yeah.
Thanks, John.
We've got a council delivery plan commitment, so that I suppose that ultimately the targets that we're working towards. The apprenticeship council delivery plan commitment was 2,000 over the 4-year term. We're currently just over 1,700 from the last number I had. So that there are targets in there. I think coming back to your first point around consultation is that, I mean, the Youth Parliament have a cabinet specifically focused on careers, and I think that's a really that is something that is a group that we can touch base with probably more frequently than we are at the moment, to make sure that what we have in mind in terms of the delivery is what they see as right for them. But the targets are in place, and so if we need to flesh them out a little bit more in a separate written document, I think it's okay for us to do that.
Just a couple of things to add, if got time. I think on the KPIs, behind each project is a set of KPIs. Certainly, where we're funding programs, we will have targets and be monitoring those against performance. I think across the whole piece, there's probably an opportunity for something a bit more unified about what we're looking at as a council around this kind of program of work. I think where we're sort of potentially headed, and there's opportunities, I think, with Southwark 2030, and the themes that are prominent in Southwark 2030 around good start in life and strong and fair economy. As we move from the current kind of corporate performance framework into a more kind of council performance framework, looking at the Southwark 2030 themes, I think there'll be an opportunity to look at perhaps sort of higher level. What is it that we're looking to kind of turn the dial on here through this work? But certainly behind, under each project, there's a kind of robust set of data. As far as government policy goes, a couple of things. So it's sort of hidden in one of the paragraphs of the report, but Southwark is participating in one of the first pilot sort of trailblazers for the Youth Guarantee program that DWP is in the kind of development stage for currently. There's going to be 5 trailblazers in London. Central London will be managing one of those through the Central London Forward sub-region, so that we're part of that. And the intention is to focus that on care experienced young people as a kind of targeted cohort, to see what extra we can do with the right resource and government commitment there. It's only a year's programme, so we've got to ramp up and ramp down in 12 months. So it's going to be challenging, but hopefully we'll learn plenty and learn plenty across. There's 12 boroughs taking the same approach or a similar approach, but at a local level, with a learning partner involved to kind of to help us to kind of feedback to DWP, but also to take our own learning from that. The other program to pick up on is the Connect to Work program, which is a DWP funded program which Southwark is going to be delivering over the next 5 years. That's targeted at people with long-term health conditions and disabilities, and there's been lots of movement and policy in that area, particularly affecting young people, and rights to claim certain benefits and elements of benefits. So certainly young people with long-term health conditions and disabilities are a key group for that programme as well, and that's something that we're going to be looking at delivering both in-house through a new team and through some commission services, and that will be rolling out from October onwards this year.
Interesting. That sounds cool, actually, both of those projects. And I do think we should probably bring those back to the Commission at some point, particularly thinking about the last point you made, Nick, around it being a new team and how that might play out. I think we'd be quite interested in taking a look into that. Thank you very much. So next up, I have Councillor Von Bees.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for a comprehensive brief. I have two tangentially related questions on this. And I also have an interest to declare because I have a 20-year-old daughter who luckily is now in full-time education, but she took a gap year. And one of the things that I noticed was the amount of unpaid internships that are still out there, which are adamantly unfair because they offer valuable work experience for those who to take up an unpaid post, and even over sort of the period of 6 months, those would be offered. So my question is, what, if anything, can the council do to discourage that practice? And the second question, slightly differently, you have various vulnerable people that are specifically and rightly included in the report for special assistance. What about refugees and asylum seekers who may not have the right to work yet? Obviously, we are hoping that, they will soon not have to wait as long. But in the meantime, do they have access to any kind of meaningful training or other schemes? Is that within the remit of that report? Thank you.
Well, I suppose the first thing about unpaid internships in terms of what the council can do to discourage it is just not to be involved with any, in terms of the internship program, which Nick can probably describe in a bit more detail, but it doesn't include unpaid internships. So I think that's the kind of first thing that the council can do to discourage it. I mean, I would say it is something that across the, I suppose, early careers sector that is becoming less common, because people do appreciate that, there's still some unpaid internships, but I think in terms of how businesses who offer those, they have a pretty poor reputation, don't they? I would say. So I mean, the first question, what can the council do to discourage it, is no unpaid internships are part of the internship program that we offer. I suppose in terms of how we support, I mean, I think it's probably slightly outside of just employment support. This when we talk about refugees who don't have the right to work in the UK as yet. A lot of the support that we offer is with the intention of helping people into work, and if they don't have the opportunity, if they're not able to do that, then it's obviously a significant hurdle. So I think that probably sits sort of slightly outside the realms of the kind of support that we offer here, but it's nevertheless a very important one. But we probably, in terms of like the support that we offer refugees more generally, and obviously through being a borough of sanctuary, possibly something for me to discuss with my cabinet colleague.
Councillor Bentley.
Thank you for the report. I lost my notes, but I have come up with 4 questions that I have for you. And like I say, some of them are a bit comments. I think exactly to your point, that joining it all together, certainly just reading it, it's clear there's a lot on offer. But I think, if you're a parent or a guardian or a young person, you're going to be like, hold on a minute, what's going on and what's the offer for me? So I think, it's really good that you did highlight that as a challenge and kind of seeing how we connect that all together. I think the other thing, and I'm pretty certain I've said this in every single meeting, we bang on a lot about apprenticeships, and rightly so, because they are a they're a qualification, they're a commitment, they're a 4-year program, but we can't neglect those work experience and internship opportunities as well, particularly when we think about young people who, say, maybe have more challenges or small employers. And I think one of the things that I regularly see is how children and parents struggle to find work experience opportunities. Often they're having to look for them themselves, and I don't think we should neglect that as a priority, because it does give an insight, very valuable, even if it's a week or 2 weeks or a few weeks over the summer. So good to hear your thoughts on that. I think the other thing, and linking it, as you know, this is education and local economy, we've been really focusing on children and young people who've got special educational needs. It really is a ticking time bomb, as the way I see it, in that you've got children who are waiting for plans, that are enabling them to do their education, and that's a real impact upon our potential workforce of the future. So thinking about particularly that cohort, which appears to be growing, and will struggle, it seems, to enter the workforce, particularly if they're not getting their education. So I'm a real focus on that. And then finally, to my colleague's point, which I think is also, you've kind of hinted at it already, when we think about employment, often there's so much focusing on young people, and rightly, and as we know in that kind of national picture, they are struggling right now often. There's too many who aren't working or in education. But also thinking about those adults who have, we're in, what's the word, precarious economic times. It looks like it's going to get worse potentially before it gets better. And thinking about how we get those people back into employment quickly. So I know the focus of this was youth employment, but I just wanted to mention that as well. So I think there's probably a question in there.
Let me try and answer the question, a few of the questions. So I think the first point that you made around, I think it's probably about accessibility. So one of the points that I made to our team is, if you receive the e-bulletin, there's loads of information opportunities in there. So much so to the extent where if I was a parent receiving that, I'd feel quite overwhelmed because there's just so much in there. And actually, I think what One Hub possibly provides the opportunity to do is for people to making sure we've got the technical ability to do this, but seeing if there's a way to filter it, so you're able to say, I'm 18 years old, I don't want to go to uni, I'd like to train and be in full-time training or education, and you're able to filter the jobs and opportunities based on your criteria. I think that's kind of probably where I'd love to get to, whether we've got if we've got the kind of technical ability to do that. So that's probably the first point. The second point, I think, was about apprenticeships. So obviously apprenticeships are really great opportunities for young people who might not be looking to go to university. Just because you're obviously getting that on-the-job experience while getting the right level of education and training as well. Definitely hear the point you were saying about internship opportunities, work experience. And I think we've been speaking internally as a council with organisational development about how we can offer those more structured work experience opportunities, because at the moment there isn't any, and we do get, funnily enough, approached by young people here in Southwark. Actually, late last week, I had a conversation with a student in Birmingham who's from Southwark, who just wanted to, was keen to do a bit of shadowing. We don't have that opportunity at the moment. I did have a call with her, but having something more structured in terms of work experience, shadowing, I think would be a really good opportunity, a good thing for the council to offer. The third point was around SEND provision, which obviously been on the other side of this table as part of this committee. I know this is something that it has looked at in real detail. Obviously, the challenge that we know is that getting, like you said, the plans in place is a significant delay in terms of making sure they've got the right level of support and and provision sort of, and obviously that is firstly in terms of education, but secondly in terms of employment. So I think that's something that we are aware of, maybe sort of slightly again outside the sort of remit of the local economy team in terms of those plans in place, but completely recognise the point that you made about about the impact that it has on young people, especially when those delays are there. And the final point is probably around people who are currently out of work but not necessarily young people. So I think that maybe the point I would make, and just again before handing over to Nick for any additional comments, is that the work that we're doing with as DWP is a really good example of this, I think, at the moment, where actually the feedback that we've had from them is that get really good messages from the government in terms of how we support people who have been out of work for a period of time back into work, and the different ways that we might be able to do that. We talk about people over 50 as an example. Obviously we've got Southwark Works, which is the employment service through the council, but there are other employment support services out there, and it's really important that we as a council are working closely with them.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to take one final question. Oh, sorry.
Yes, is it helpful if I just add a
What time are we on?
Are we running out of time?
Yes. 2 minutes max.
Okay, I mean, just to pick up on a points then, on the point about kind of work experience and internships, I think this is an area where we've been focusing this with the other skills partnership and looking at some of the sectors where we know that there are real barriers to some of our young people getting foothold in those sectors, like creative and cultural industry. And also then looking at some of the growing industries locally, like life sciences. Right next door, we're going to have really substantial life sciences investments. And so those are the areas that we're kind of trying to be more systematic about, kind of working on over the long term, over a strategic way with partners to build those opportunities out. It's not an easy win, but if we get the plans in place and get the right people around the table, we can start to open out the opportunities there. And the other thing is just just on the SEND bit. Can't speak for colleagues in the team, but I do talk to them quite a lot, and I know that there's an increasing focus on the employability aspect of this and what we're doing both in the council as an employer, but also to support young people who have SEND, HCPs, and are moving into the phase of life where they need to start thinking about what happens post education. And there's an increasing focus there.
Okay, last question from the Commission. So, Councillor Hussain.
Thank you. Thanks for the report, both. So yeah, great to see the kind of the youth getting involved in the youth guarantee plan. I'd really encourage you to amplify that more in the report. Just one thing that sticks out for me, obviously, with great to see kind of focus on employment services, apprenticeships, and business sciences. How much kind of co-creation and collaboration is there, like across the 32 London boroughs in relation to this? Because obviously, it's great to kind of focus on apprenticeships within Southwark, but however, kind of from a kind of cross London perspective, is there an opportunity, and we may all be doing this already, in terms of collaborating and co-creating kind of partnerships with the other 32 London boroughs to provide more opportunity and more access to opportunities across London, both for Southwark residents, but also conversely, young people in other areas into Southwark, if that makes sense. Thank you.
I'll take this one, Nick, and talk a bit just with colleagues. And
yes, there's a fair amount of cross-borough work that goes on. I suppose at the kind of big strategic level, we've now got the London Growth Plan, and underneath that, there's an inclusive talent strategy under development, which is a London-wide exercise with 32 boroughs, London councils supervising and rating, plus the GLA, and we've been involved in that. We're going to continue to be involved in that, and that's kind of thinking about what we try and do strategically as a group across London to join up. And then at a kind of programme level, we're involved in all sorts of work with colleagues. So life sciences, we've been part of something called the Inclusive Health and Life Sciences Coalition, which is, oh gosh, I can't remember, 6 to 8 boroughs, I think, across South and sort of North East London, where there are life sciences clusters, thinking about where the opportunities are going to be and trying to share good practice in developing these pathways into that sector, which is sort of a new and emerging sector. We've done some long-standing work with both Lambeth and Lewisham, actually have a co-funded post working on net zero skills and careers opportunities, which is and strong partnership with some of our universities and education providers in that as well. The work with Central London Forward generally is kind of, there's an element of coordination there across Central London and a lot of kind of convening around shared opportunities. So the short answer is yes, it's happening at the strategic level, and then where we see opportunities at a programme level, very much trying to connect and share learning. And
Thanks. I said that would be the last question on this item, but I've had my arm twisted. But Councillor Hanvass assures me that she will be concise. So, Councillor Hanvass, over to you.
Apologies, I was travelling back from somewhere and that's why I'm so late. So apologies for having missed the first half of your presentation. But when I looked through this, it struck me that a lot of it is sort of from the side of the young person, but not from the employer. Do you do anything to help support employers take on, say, kids with, young adults with neurodiversity or with other issues? I'm just saying this because when I read somewhere that people with autism only have about only 20% of them are in employment, when a lot of them are intellectually able to work. So there's lots of young adults out there who could work and don't work. And I'm just wondering if there needs to be more education for employers. And I'm just wondering if Southwark is planning or it does anything to help employers to take on those young people looking for work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's a really good question. I think it's a really important one as well. I think we talk a bit about good people who are the organisation that are employed to create to connect with employers and try and open up those opportunities for all residents in Southwark, including young people. I think the honest answer though would be that it's quite a big behavioural and cultural change on behalf of the employers. I think the sort of suggestion and recommendation that you're making is an important one. I think the practical levers that the council has to change recruitment behaviours of other organisations is probably. I think the recommendation from the committee might have to drill down a bit further and say what exactly we could do to kind of encourage organisations that that are not part of the council to essentially recruit in a more inclusive way, essentially. How we having worked in this field before outside of the council, I know that having inclusive recruitment practices which allow opportunities for all people is really important. The council's ability to influence that is probably slightly limited, I would say.
Thanks, everyone. That brings us almost to the end of that agenda item on youth employment support. Some good discussion there. There seems to be quite a few potential recommendations that are coming up from perhaps working more closely with the youth parliament to consult and strategies around kind of those new industries and new employers coming to the borough and making those really robust, as well as send employment and also perhaps us as a committee thinking about what the council could do to support employers in changing recruitment behaviours, whether or not our powers are limited in that area. The final thing I just want to say is, as everyone was talking, I was thinking about the AI impact on work and what that's going to look like, obviously not just in Southwark, but globally. And so perhaps that's something we could have a look at another time, because I think that's probably a thread that impacts everything within this document. Nick, I see you smiling, so I'm sure you're thinking about that. All right, well, thanks very much, guys. Off you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next up we have agenda item 6, and that is the East Street Traders. If those of you speaking would like to come up, I think there's a few of you tonight, which is exciting. So it's great to have East Street Market back to the committee. Obviously, East Street is home to one of our wonderful markets in Southwark. I lived on Walworth Road for some time and would often get my avocados from there. So, yeah, really interested to hear about what you've been up to. I think when you came to the commission last, you were sharing lots of really helpful recommendations for improvements in terms of working with the council and the support that the council can provide. So we were keen to have you back to, I guess, hear about how that's gone and perhaps hear your reflections on what more can be done. Now, you presented us with a really amazing report, which is extremely comprehensive and amazing, really, in terms of what you do. There's a section within here on obstacles and challenges, and I think that's probably the part of this report that we as a commission are most interested in. So you'll have around 10 to 15 minutes max to speak. And if you could try to focus on that area so that we as a commission could really come up with some recommendations to help you, I think that would be great. But please first introduce yourselves.
Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure for us to be here, myself and the team, and it's great to be able to return a year later almost, just over. So my name's Linda Rankin, and I am the chair or the head of East Street Community that was set up since we last met in order to support the traders and shop owners and also represent the local community. On my left, I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves. On my left is Felix.
My name is Felix Badu. I am the co-chair of the East Street Traders and Shop Owners Association.
On my right is Dr. Sylvia.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Sylvia Jacoby, an urban scholar and local resident, and I've had some experience delivering good growth fund projects and responsible for the mosaic at London Bridge Station.
And lastly, David.
Hi, everyone. David Finlay. I've been working with Lyndon over the last 6 months to really deep dive into the East Street Market brand, what it means, what it should mean, and how we can drive that narrative forward because it powers everything that they do. So.
Right, so yeah, over the last year or so, we've received a little bit of funding in order to support the project and further our work with the street traders. The journey has been a challenging one, but like all journeys, you start off at the beginning thinking, yeah, great, and then you experience things that you need to overcome. So since the year, and the funding that we received, a little bit of high street funding, we managed to work with the traders to achieve things such as engagement. So first of all, we had to listen to the traders, find out what they need, and they were the experts in the field. So we really listened and engaged with them. And from that, we realized we had to do a bit of research, background research in the history and local area and the community, also finding out what they needed from the market. And that led us to looking at strategies of how to improve and move forward. Okay, so there's lots of engagement with the traders doing that. And out of that, all the traders came up with the idea of really finding a clear, strong brand and ident for the market to make it look more professional. Again, so we went through that process. They decided on the color schemes and the look and feel of the market. And then we we managed to secure some additional funding, and we put together a proof of concept for the solar panel barrow, which was to help to reduce some of the costs for the traders in terms of electrical power that they use to light up their barrows. So we designed and built that out, and we put it in the market for about 3 months to see its efficiency, and it was very, very, very good, very, very positive. So out of that, we put forward a slightly larger scheme to then provide more power for the whole of the market. So including the shop owners and the traders within the market. And that's something that Dr. Sylvia will speak about as we're moving forward. But I'm taking up too much time, so I'll hand over to Felix, who's one of the traders.
Thank you. The atmosphere of the market at the moment is enthusiasm. We're working very hard. The past 2 years, we've been having a series of meetings, and what we've come up with is a really tall list of what we want to be done in the market, and working together with the street community, which Lyndon chairs, we have come up with a lot of ideas with the shop owners and the traders. So without going too much about it, what we have really come up with is to ask the committee here as into challenges the traders and the shop owners are facing at the moment. The main point, which I don't want to talk about too much, is a parking issue in the market, because our parking was taken away more probably 2 decades ago, and is really, really affecting the market. Having been run few markets, some councils are giving maybe 2 hours for customers to park and go. That has really affected the market because there's no parking at all within the East Street area now. And few of the roads has also been blocked. So this access to the market is really limited. So that's about parking. And the second one is one of the major problems we're facing in terms of dealing with what's happening in the market and who to go to. We have ineffective market management. That is to say, separate people manage shops and stalls, and sometimes communication becomes really conflicting. That is, we need one person to go to as a point of call. If we need to say, we need this, we want that to be done, we really need one person to really contact to help shop owners and store traders. We would also appreciate an incentive to bring in more footfall in the market. I was discussing with ESC to have a special designated area for food sellers, like what's happening in Barrow Market, let's say, where we have a corner where it be food stores with a sitting area. If it's a temporary sitting area, we can move the chair so it doesn't become a sort of a congregation for people who are not actually coming to buy. So during trading hours, we can have a sitting area, probably music and food sellers there to bring more footfall and money to the market. We also discuss a business hub where we could have a communication stroke, a community area in the market where store holders, shop owners can go into. Actually, now everything is digital, to actually scan their documents, print their documents, and send off documents to various, even paying bills to the council. Sometimes it's very difficult when traders haven't got internet or smartphones to do this. So if you have something like that in the market, it will really help us. So I will let Lyndon talk about other things that we really want and what's affecting us at the moment, and what we've come up at the meetings.
Thank you, Felix. So just touching a couple of points that you mentioned. One is unity, being able to have one point of contact within the market. Because when we first started, there were two factions. There was the traders, the street traders, that had their focus, and all the energy went into we need. And then you had the shop owners that had their focus, and the two weren't really coming together. So one of during early engagement that we did, we managed to bring the two organizations or two groups together into one organization. That was set up as the Southwark Association of Street Traders and Shop Owners. And so they worked, and we skilled them up, and we taught them how to have things and how to come to decisions and deal with conflicts, all the basic things. And now, a year later, where we've moved on further, we've just recently amalgamated SASTO with East Street Community. So now we've joined into one larger, more official organization. Okay, so we're literally going through the merge now. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a new name and a new brand where we bring in the skills and abilities and the expertise from both groups. In terms of the hub, as Felix mentioned there, one thing that jumped out to us was that the traders are in the market from 7 till probably about 4 or 5. And they're working 6 days a week, so they get very little opportunity to go out and do just the basics. You know, as Felix says, pay bills, send off messages, get information, pass information on. So the idea of this hub will be not only a space for the traders to come and use and utilize, but also we'll have space there for to interact and bring in new traders, young traders, traders that maybe, you know, single parent sitting at home making jewelry, whatever, by themselves. By bringing them in or giving them access to a hub, they'll be able to set up cooperatives and work together. And with the new broadband that's going to be provided to the market, we want to promote and encourage things like a market app where they can do things like click and collect, for example. And within the hub, my background, I've had 12 years in film and TV, working at the BBC and other places. So I want to have a place where they can come, you know, use just basic lighting, basic cameras. They can do quick little TikTok style videos and then put it out. And another way of them sort of reaching or bridging the void which they have at the moment, where most people are shopping online. They're used to, you know, go on Amazon and click and it delivers. If we can, well, we need to be starting to compete or joining that kind of market field, the market area. So that's one of the things we want to have in the hub. But Dr. Silva will speak a little bit more about it in a second. But in terms of branding and the look and the story that we now need to project with East Street Market, because it's gone through quite a bit of turmoil over the years, and we really need to start telling an updated modern story which is compelling, and is going to grab the next generation. So I'll ask David to take from there.
That's great. And I'm just going to say there's around 5 minutes left before we want to move to questions. 5 minute warning. Perfect.
Okay, so bottom line, in addition to what the team have already told you, we believe that East Street Market needs to be a destination in its own right. And whilst the functional stuff will sort of take care of itself with your support, we believe the narrative around East Street Market needs to be reinvigorated to create that critical mass for audience and the community. So over the last 6 months, we've been digging into the brand itself, and we have crafted a very compelling vision for East Street Market, which I'm sure Lyndon can share with you in a separate document. We've also crafted a positioning. We've also crafted our why. So the functional stuff, the what we do and how we do it is important, but also the why. Why do we exist? What is our impact in the community? And why would I make an effort to come south of the river to come to East Street Market, for example? So these things ultimately power everything that we do moving forward as a brand. So all the functional attributes that we build in, all the sustainability, all the regreening, all these things are powered by the brand as opposed to independent pockets of nice things to have. And as a brand, then we become stronger, the community becomes stronger, and ultimately we become a destination, which is what we all want, right? So that is the backbone of what we've been doing, in addition to all the, should we call it the functional stuff as well. Thank you.
And I just want to conclude with how do we achieve these deliverables that we've identified in the report, which is so comprehensive and was largely done by volunteer support. And this report and the work that was done, that we discussed in the report, was funded by Thriving High Streets. So one of the recommendations that I think we want the committee to make is that further Thriving High Street funding would be allocated to this initiative, so that further deliverables can be project managed properly, and the value of the work that is already being done to be harnessed, and that this will continue, and also that this will connect with potential further SIL funding to be allocated for some of the capital items that we've listed in the report as some of the modules for a larger master plan to make East Street a shopping district, and to go along with the brand and the existing improvements that were identified. So the rationale really is to respond to some of the opportunities and challenges we identified and to be really practical in delivering these. And we've tested a lot of the recommendations already, but there's a lot more scope to develop these forward. So, for example, new gazebos are rolled out. That's a very simple step of transformation to make the look and feel of the market more professional, and to also go along with the new branding that was developed to make it a unified market. Then work needs to be done to the streetscape to improve the surface of the street and remove some of the potholes and some of the trip hazards which are there, and which also create health and safety issues with wastewater being accumulated there. So there's quite a few waste management issues that we've identified that this will also improve. I think more lighting and the Wi-Fi is being added as we speak, so that's a really important improvement. And some work is going on around Nursery Park to bring that into the whole strategy of the market. Then an additional element of this master plan could be the solar panels added onto the roof of the adjacent buildings to power up the traders, and to power up also some of the barrows, the permanent barrows which were tested, and give the traders an option to have these more permanent barrows to improve their working conditions and remove the burden of always needing to set up and put things back in the evening into storage, and make a much more compact solution for them. We talked about recycling and waste management. A practical solution could be to add cardboard compactors, because there's an awful lot of cardboards lying around from very early in the morning, and it's a lot of work for the traders to compact this themselves, and then there are staff by the council who drag the cardboard through the market up and down to the waste facility, and that could improve their working conditions, and it just improves the feel of the market if there's less waste. And introduce refrigeration through the solar panels. Refrigeration is important to reduce food waste, which is an issue in the market because the traders don't have any facilities to keep the fresh produce. And as part of the branding, there are opportunities for signage and wayfinding, and extending that to the built environment with murals and a clear pointers to make this a destination, which David talked about. And Lyndon stretched on this important point of a workspace for young entrepreneurs and a hub for the traders to have rest and to have warm space as well to come to. And that's really important also with the wider London strategy to support workspaces for entrepreneurs and artists. And there's very little productive spaces in zone 1 and 2 London for young people to set up creative businesses. And of course, apart from this being potential still opportunities, there are additional considerations to be made around a structure for the governance and market management to be set up, so that the KIC can work with the council to really deliver on one working stream going forward, and not to contradict any of these deliverables. And we did present a budget, just as a disclaimer, for just a broad overview of how much this could cost. But I note here that these are modules, and they need to be feasibility studies done for each of them to look closer into what are the priorities that need to be delivered. So we're prepared to, with further funding, to look deeper into this. And we're just opening this up for your questions.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. And thank you for, I guess, coming with so many constructive recommendations and suggestions. You know, it is really amazing to see. It's refreshing when we have a panel like this coming to us with so much proactivity. So thank you for that. And I see that Councillor Seaton is in the audience tonight as well, one of your ward councillors. So given you're talking about SIL, I guess that's quite handy. But of course, there's a lot that as a commission we'd like to recommend to Cabinet now. SIL is coming, but I'm sure there's plenty that we can do. So I think I saw Councillor Bentley's hand first, Councillor Hambath, and then Councillor Von Vies in that order.
Thank you. And I just want to echo, it was such just a delightful report to read in the way it was set out. And I actually shared it with some other markets in the area because I thought it was so good. I had kind of two questions. The first was around this volunteer-led. Can I confirm that nobody is paid who's kind of done all this work? That's my first question.
Okay, so when we went for the funding to get this going, we originally put in for that's just under 60k. That would have covered initial parts, but there was reduced to 6,000, offered 6,000, then brought up to 12 for the first 12.8 for the first phase, and then for the second phase we got about 25. In terms of hours, I was just sitting down as we were looking at putting this report together the other day. I worked out over the year, I've put in personally 1,200. Sorry, 120. 120 unpaid hours. So right. 1,200 unpaid hours. Yeah, that's right. First time. So
1,200.
Yeah, 1,200. Yeah. 1,200. Sorry. So pretty much, it is volunteer-led or driven, simply because we're always, you see from the team, we're very committed to getting the market to where it needs to be. We believe in the potential. We believe in the community. I live in the local area. My children grow up, went to school in the local area. And from my perspective, I want to leave somewhere where my daughters feel safe, want to be and feel proud to, bring up their families in the area. And I know it's for the rest of our team. Well, so it is pretty much volunteer-led all the way through. But this is why, in a way, we see that as an investment to now move forward and be able to deliver the next stage. And sometimes you've got to speculate to accumulate, as they say. And this is our speculation.
Yeah, so I guess my point in highlighting that is personally, I think this is incredible, and I don't, I feel like it should be, rewarded. So I understand the commitment, but yeah. My second question is much more practical. This point around parking comes up really frequently, and you have clearly done some analysis of the people who use the market and kind of demographics there. Do you feel that this parking change that you've kind of talked about, say 2 hours, would that benefit, do you think it would increase footfall of people kind of coming, as you talked about, I think, Sylvie, around this kind of destination idea? Would it attract people in there? Because I'm sure my colleague's going to mention Borough Market, that's on the kind of tourist trail, right? So they don't really necessarily need cars. Or would it actually benefit the people who are trading there? And is that who the idea of the parking would benefit? Or is it both?
I would say both. I'll let Felix, as a trader, perhaps fill in the gaps. But I would say both. Because traditionally there's been sort of, so it's two customers. You've got local customers that come by foot or use public transport. Then you have the older members that would come, especially when we had a car park before. They would come and they would shop and buy, large bags of rice and large items that they would then take back. So that maybe you'd be shopping, once in 2 weeks, once a month to get bulk, and they'll take that home. And I think without the facility of the parking and being there, they've had to go perhaps look closer to where they're living. And it may just be up by Camberwell or up, Denmark Hill, coming from there or coming from Brixton. But but they've had to look and shop more locally. So, Felix,
Yes, my children are all born in East Street, just at the end of the Market Door Street. And we moved to East Street since 1991 and started operating a shop there, first working in a shop from 2000, got my own shop 2006 and another shop, two shops 2006. And the customers just declined from the time the car park behind the nursery road was changed into residential buildings. And every customers that come round, you ask them, oh, we haven't seen you for so long, no parking. We sell bulky grocery items. Nobody could move those things. So now I've resorted into taking water, rice, things, 12 dozens of items to people's houses free of charge. Some people, when I'm lucky, they'll say, okay, we add £10 and I cannot come to the congestion zone because it's so close. And it's affected every single trader you ask, they will say the same thing. And the shops, those that buy meat and fish for parties and stuff, they have to come in on Mondays when the market is closed now. And it's really affected us. Liverpool Street, Merrill Street, Browning Street, it's all closed to traffic. So you cannot access East Street Market. You have to come down Albany Road onto Portland Street to Brandon Street. And that is all. And Southwark parking is also one of the expensive parking zones in the area. You go to Croydon, Tottenham High Street. My family lives around there. When I go there, you get 2 hours free parking. West Croydon, 3 hour, you get free parking. You come down to West Norwood, you get free parking. Went to Dalston, you get free parking for 1 hour. All over the place. But Southwark is the only one that I've visited. You don't get any parking, which is affecting the customers, affecting the traders a lot.
sorry,
Thank you.
Let me just add to that. I know that part of Southwark's manifesto is to try and promote a green eco environment. And, we're 100% behind that. And so one of the potential solutions that we've been discussing with the team would be to use those wheelie bicycle things with a big carrier, and use it locally. So perhaps within about 5 mile radius, we can have a team allocated to the market that could pick up and drop off. And this is where, again, that hub could be that base where people can come, because it's right by the area we're looking at is just behind the toilets on Portland Place, opposite the church. There's a little courtyard there, so it's purpose built, pretty much what we need. So having a cyclist there that can pick up and deliver and drop back again, and just charge minimum amount, or have a cooperative scheme or membership scheme that would support that.
It's really cool, isn't it? That'd be great. I do think you're right, Councillor Bentley. The issue of parking and the impact on businesses and markets does come up time and time again, and I hear about it. And I do wonder if the Commission should request that the Council produce an impact assessment on that, if not already done. Of course, supported by some of these great ideas as well. Able. Okay, so next I've got Councillor Hambas.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually very, very familiar with East Street, and I think it's a brilliant place. Great place to buy your fruit and veg and stuff like that. And this is a fantastic report. I think, I commend you for all the work you put into it. Now, something I asked last time came here was about evening markets. Now, it might be difficult with the amount of hours that some of your stall holders are working, but do you think there's any scope for that, or any interest to try and maybe get some of the people who were working in the week? I know there's the weekend, but to have maybe over the summer months have a sort of Friday night evening market, something like that. And that's my first part. And the other thing is, the other thing I wanted to say is I think food hub area is an excellent idea. Anyway, I've given my questions and comments.
Thank you. First and foremost, you've all mentioned what a wonderful document's been put together, and I have to give credit for it. incredible. And can you believe she did it in 2 afternoons? Hmm?
No,
So,
that
yeah.
is not easy
No,
to believe
trust
at
me,
all.
she's-
Well done.
She's a demon. Yeah. So I thought, let's give credit where credit is due. So it's fantastic. So in terms of the previous question, it's something that we have been doing. With the research that we've been doing in the local area, we realised that East Street Market is set between two new developing demographic communities. Okay, and rich in with they're young people, young professionals, and working long days, as you know. And some things that have come back from them is that they would love when they come on in the evening to be able to just pop out, get a takeaway, chill out with their friends, and then go back home. So there's something that we were looking at trying to set up through the summer, utilising Nursery Park, as Dr. Sylvia mentioned. But I just noticed that they've passed some improvements to the park, and they're planning on building out the entrance. At the moment, there's an entrance from the East Street Market naturally into the park, and now they're going to put up a fencing that's going to close that off and put exercise machine behind. So useful, but it's going to close off that part of the park, bottom end of the park. That area, as we were looking at it, would have been perfectly suited to have like tables and chairs, have food offerings around that area, and it would be in the corner of the park, especially through the summer months. I run a centre which is up by the Haygate on the corner. I see a lot of the residents from the new development, Elephant Park development. They wander down in the evenings. They wander down, and especially on the weekends, with their family, with their friends, walking their dogs. A lot of dog walkers down there. And they wander down to the park, the edge of the park, by the box stand, Brandon Road. And even during the day, on Sundays or Saturday or Sundays, they tend to sort of hover around there and then turn and come back again. Now, our strategy was, or we want to work on, would be if they're going to come down to the edge of the park naturally, if we can have something in the park that entice them. As I said, they're either walking dogs or pushing their children in buggies. If we had a place where they can stop, have a coffee, just chill out and have something to eat, and have traders, selling bits and pieces that they could then go and buy. Because part of our future plan is to attract a broader range of products into the market. So at the moment, there's lots of fruit and veg, great stuff, but it's not as the old market was, and I think people are looking for, different aspects, different flavors within the market. So in terms of developing a destination, okay, those are kind of things that we know we would be able to hold them there a little bit longer. 2 weeks ago, very quickly, one of our deliverables that we had to do from Thriving High Street was to have a East Street vibe. So we had a DJ down there, a solar wagon. We had some students from ULA, final year students that produce products and wanted to take them to market. So we supported them in having the market experience. And we had food down there, a couple of food wagons, and it was fantastic. We actually had photos of people dancing in the street. They were stopping the market, they were dancing, they were having a little jig. The traders that were either side of us, where we were set up, they had the best day, so they thanked us profusely. They had a wonderful day because people were stopping. It had a moment, a reason to stop and just hover and look around and then just, start buying. So evening market, definitely, is something that we'd like to push with your support. And so we have the people, the expertise on board in order to deliver that.
I would quickly like to add.
Yes. We've got 5 minutes left on this agenda item, so I'll allow you to just add to that, and then Councillor Hanvas, if you can respond quite quickly. Then I have Councillor Bonvise, I think, and then we're going to wrap up. So all of that within 5 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you. I would quickly like to add the parking again. If the council can help us with machines in the area where, like other markets in London, you print 2-hour no return ticket on your car screen, so people can shop, and also give us like paying for parking in the streets surrounding the market. The parking tickets stop at 4:30, so people picking their children up can shop in the market instead of 8:30 to 6:30, the market is closed. If parking can stop at 4:30 and the 2-hour ticket, no return, very good for the market.
Interesting. Councillor
I just wanted to say, so I agree about the sort of the mix of stalls has changed. And for example, there used to be a stall selling short dated pasta and oils and all sorts of things. And I think that attracted people to the market. And then they go and buy fruit and veg and other things as well. So just to say, I agree totally with you. And there was a butcher's van years and years ago that used to park at the end. So those sorts of trying to get those sorts of people back will then help all the other stalls, I think. So I think that's a really good.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. All right, Councillor von Bees.
Thank you. Try and be brief. Firstly, I'm a huge fan of all markets, and they're such different ones. I used to live near Shepherd's Bush Market and fought for its survival, and I'm now a councillor in Borough Bankside, and I've just come back from a trustee meeting at Borough Market. And I just wondered if you can tell me a little bit about your sort of long-term vision for East Street. Because Borough Market, in many ways, is a victim of its own success, right? So Borough Market used to be fruit and veg for local residents, and it is now almost exclusively takeaway ready meals for tourists. And we have a lot of complaints from local residents who no longer shop there, partly because it's become very expensive and partly because, you know, there is no more produce really to be found because the margins of produce. So just a word of warning, I like the idea of having this little food hub, but this is something that could change the character of the market. To me, A Street is a place where I want to go to buy produce that I can't find in the supermarket because it comes from, you know, parts of the world that I may not know, and it's for me, it's fantastic. It's like, you know, a little cosmos on its own. So I would very much love to see that preserved and having a specific cultural character for East Street and not turn it into another sort of tourist fast food place. But of course, I can see also that you need to attract more people. So what is your long-term vision? Where would you like to see East Street Market going if you had all of your wishes fulfilled and the necessary funds? And the second very short question is just to say that I fully endorse the recommendation that you have on page 18. I know that Food Hub is not on there. So, you know, I just wondered if that is your comprehensive kind of wish list or if there is anything that's missing. Thank you.
Okay, so a short overview of the long-term vision, followed by, on 18 and anything that's missing, I think. Yes, 1 minute.
That's a challenge. That's a challenge, especially for me. I say long-term vision is to, as we said, provide a place. That's the main destination market that people want to come and spend time and be. You know, they want to meet friends. They want to feel safe. They want to explore. One of the things that we want to build in to ensure that we don't end up like Borough Street Market would be always be listening to the community. We're lucky that around the market, we've got several estates, we've got loads of community. It's about keeping that dialogue, that communication with them. So we want to have a place where we can explore and introduce new things into the market. So it's just keeping with the pulse of the needs, the one local community and their desires and wants. When you spoke about having niche items with the market, unfortunately nowadays with the economy, we know that niche costs a little bit more. So from a trade's perspective, they're there to try and make maximum amount of money during the day. So what's happening at the moment is slipping in the direction of buy cheap, sell cheap, and try and get a margin from that. That's something that we need to look at changing. That could be through supporting the traders in terms of how much they need to lay out in order to be in the market in various ways. So something we can explore again through research.
also want to add governance of the KIC is really important, and it's a community interest company. So I think by that constitution, we do have to deliver for the community, and it's not in any way anything that is privatized or not run by the people who are actually representing the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, that was really a good point to end on, I think. And oh, I do apologize. No, you are welcome to make a contribution.
One sentence.
We love a
One
sentence.
East Street Market believes it can be London's leading independent sustainable market. That's our vision. So
London's leading independent sustainable market.
That is the vision that powers the brand moving forward. I wanted to leave you with that because hopefully that makes sense of all the dialogue that we're having on this table today.
Very nice. Yes, and I was very taken by your comments earlier around the brand and how important that is. When I think about markets that I travel across London to, I can pick up maybe 5 or 6 in my head, and it is the brand. I don't even know what they sell, really. It's just that they've got this kind of, elusive brand. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a really important overarching point for all of this. So we've got a ton of recommendations. I won't summarise them all, but certainly some that stuck out to me. I think it was really important of Councillor Von Bees to highlight the mystery shopping survey and the health and safety pieces. I think we'll have to dig into those separately, but there's lots in there. Support from the council. Was that the right one? Just checking. Okay, there's a lot in here. There's you see what I mean? There's kind of page 19 and then anyway.
Can I make one suggestion?
Please, if it's going to help us navigate this report.
No, it would just be to invite the committee to have a working meeting to address some of these points with the right people who've been there and done the research, and then answer your questions further once you have more time to review this, and then kind of strategize on some of these elements that can be delivered to see how practical that is with the funding available.
Absolutely, and obviously Councillor Batterson was here just before. I would hope that he is committed to increasing that dialogue and facilitating it. So that's a really helpful point. I won't go into the recommendations any further. There's lots, but I think we'll feed a lot of this into the report with that recommendation as well, so that we can explore things properly in dialogue. All right, I think that's everything. Thank you so much. That was brilliant.
Thank you very
wonderful.
much. Have a good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Take care. Bye-bye. Gosh, this room feels so empty now. Sorry. We've saved the best till last, we hope. Anyway, on to agenda item 7, which is the Southwark Safeguarding Children's Partnership, the SSCP. I believe this is a standing agenda item for this commission every year. So we always look forward to hearing from you, Alistair, about what you do on children and families in Southwark and the Safeguarding Children's Partnership. You have 10 minutes to give an overview. I think we have also got a report from yourself as well, so we'll take that as read. So please do share really the top lines so that we have a chance to spend another 10 minutes digging into some of what you've said and asking you some questions. So over to you.
Okay, thank you for taking the report.
Alistair, can I ask you to bring the mic closer to you? Sorry. It's a little bit quiet for us.
One is a cover report. Hopefully you've got 2 reports. One is a cover report and one is the annual report, the Southwark Safeguarding Children Partnership. So I'm Alistair.
Yes. That's
I'm
right.
the Director of Children's Services, but I'm also the Chair of the Southwark Safeguarding Children Partnership. But what you have in the cover report is, I think, an explanation, hopefully, for those who aren't as familiar with how the arrangements work to safeguard children. And they're guided by Working Together to Safeguard Children 2023, which is the statutory guidance. The partnership is has 3 statutory members, which are the police, health, and the council. And I represent the council on that. The chair of the partnership rotates every year, so it's currently just transferred to me from the police. So just some things to draw out from the reports that you've had. You'll see a structure for how the partnership works, from its executive through its stakeholder groups, and there's 4 key subgroups which do a lot of the hard work, hard miles, which I don't sit on. I used to sit on in previous years, but they are the quality and effectiveness subgroup, where lots of detailed work goes around our multi-agency audits, our changes to statutory guidance, and that's chaired jointly by health and by the council. There's what's called the local child safeguarding practice review subgroup, which looks at serious concerns where a child has come to harm, and we need to have a multi-agency review, formal multi-agency review of that. There's a learning network which disseminates learning, and what's called the MACE, the Multi-Agency Child Exploitation Arrangement, which again are guided by London-wide arrangements. So in this cover report, it does note what our priorities are going to be for the year ahead. I want to spend a little bit of time at the end considering some pretty major changes to expect in the year ahead that aren't detailed here, that are really coming from the Department of Education reform programme for children's social care and for multi-agency child protection, as well as what's called the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, which is before Parliament at the moment, which has pretty serious implications for how we work together to safeguard and promote the welfare of children. So a quick highlight, just to highlight a few things in the report that you've got before you. You'll note on page 8, there's a number of pages which are authored by our independent scrutineer, Anna Berry, who's got a health background. She goes through, she doesn't work for the council or police or health, but she's contracted independently to support us in our scrutiny of our safeguarding work. She details a lot of things that we do, which there is some more detail in section 4, particularly she describes a core child protection activity. So if you look at pages 14 to 15, you'll see lots of data about our activity. To summarise that, what we've seen is really significantly high levels of child protection activity in the borough, safeguarding activity, but our numbers of children on child protection plans have reduced over time and continue to reduce. So how we understand that is that our safeguarding practice is pretty strong. We would expect that in an area where there's high levels of deprivation and high levels of need, we would expect there to be pretty high levels of child protection activity, but there's less children subject to child protection plans because we believe that our system is pretty purposeful, more purposeful than it used to be. That children spend less time subject to child protection plans because we're more effective in how we work together. An illustration of this, and I did speak about this last year when I was here, the people who deliver this work are our workforce, our social workers, our police officers, health practitioners. And one of the big concerns, I think, that's quite common knowledge in London is the high level of agency workers that produce instability in our workforce. London has done a lot of work to try to work collectively to address that, to bring those levels of agency workers down. It's better for the public purse. It provides more continuity and stability of workers for families and more effective interventions for families if you've got a stable workforce. So we compare we compare it really well to in London boroughs. If you look at our neighbours, Lewisham and Lambeth, for example, we've got significantly less numbers of agency social workers than those boroughs, and other similar boroughs like Harringay and Islington. What I'm trying to do is just illustrate some data that's not in the report to give some of the reason why I think that we have got a more effective, to explain some of the data there about the purposeful nature of our child protection system. I would put a disclaimer on this overall that the potential for a child to come to serious harm, as you see sometimes in the press, could happen in any borough. There are no guarantees in this work. It's not like areas of medicine where there's diagnostic tests, blood tests, or other kinds of tests. Actually, it's lots of professional judgments based on information, what you have from schools, perspectives of parenting, etc. And while I believe our practice is good and is strong, I think there's still much we continue to do to always learn about this. So if you look at the section, for example, on serious youth violence, which is on page 18 to 19, there was an area of focus on that during 2022-2023. It does highlight, 23-24, it does highlight lots of areas of strength, as well as lots of areas that we still need to learn about. And I think that's indicative of lots of the deep dives that we do. We often find lots of strength, but we are a self-critical system that looks at how we can improve. And when working with effectively a child protection system that was designed around harm in the family home, and that's the genesis of the child protection system that we have today. The world has changed, as you know. There's lots more harms that affect children and young people outside the home, but also affect how parents as well. I think that wasn't around or as visible when the current system was designed. So I think there's always things to learn around that. I'm just conscious of time, so I'll try and summarise another couple of things and just point to the future. One of the areas of work that was undertaken was to try to get a neglect strategy together. What that's trying to do is multi-agency approach of how we respond to where we believe children are experiencing neglect. And one of the main reasons for us wanting to have that as a partnership strategy, it was a result of the pandemic and the cost of living crisis, that we saw really high numbers of children subject to child protection plans. But we felt that it wasn't fair that in an area like Southwark, where there's high levels of deprivation, where the community was experiencing lots of pressure, it's not most parents we know want to do the best by their children, but some of them are not able to do that. It seemed wrong that they might slip into a child protection system and be judged by that, rather than us trying to think about how we help those families more to move to get the help earlier. So I think that was what we did to try to develop that neglect strategy, which was launched a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully we are stronger in our practice about how we respond to neglect. There are two child safeguarding practice reviews that I mentioned on page 24 that illustrate again how we when there are certain circumstances around a particular child that need looking at, we take a really in-depth look at that, and we will publish the findings on those. The teenager that's mentioned died by suicide, there we're not unable to share the findings of that report yet, but that will be published on our website pretty soon. Again, a multi-agency learning review about that. Just what's coming down the track, I think it's just important to let the Commission know, and then I'll take any questions. And it's the big issue for the Safeguarding Children Partnership, because the government is wanting us to quite significantly change how we organise ourselves to respond to safeguarding, respond to how we help families to try and get help earlier, but also how we respond to child protection and safeguarding. So the Safeguarding Children Partnership is about multi-agency arrangements to safeguard children, but we don't, at this point in time, have multi-agency child protection teams. We work closely with the police and health and schools, but we don't sit in as one team together. The new legislation that's coming in is currently in the child Child Wellbeing and Schools Bill will require local areas to have multi-agency child protection teams where health and police put staff to be jointly managed within a team, a bit like you have a youth justice team. A youth justice service now are multi-agency services that have been for 15, 20 years. We're going to be required to have those multi-agency teams. That's quite a big change. There's lots of questions nationally about the funding of health and police to put people in those teams. But we'll have to have those teams. And another big change, and then I will stop, is that our arrangements for what we call targeted early help, so help that isn't formally statutory child and youth child protection, are needing to merge with our child in need arrangement. So if you think of our help and protection system as you've got universal at the bottom, like a pyramid, and you've got children in care at the top, it goes like that. And you have a tier on child protection. Underneath that, we have children in need. Well, the government is requiring us to merge our children in need with our targeted early help functions together. So if you think of it this way, for a family that goes up and down tiers of need, you might need child protection, and then everyone might be happy, and you go back into early help. Everything's going along for a year, and then you need a higher level of help. You get passed between different teams and different levels of help, and the government's listened to what families have said. There's a big review about a children's social care review led by Josh McAllister that published its findings over a year ago now, and said that wasn't good enough for families. Really, families needed one place to go for help and stayed there. And then if there's a child protection concern, that multi-agency child protection team should come in and work with your family help teams, but that the continuity of help for the family should stay within one place rather than families having to tell their story to multiple people and getting passed between services. So that's my very quick whistle-stop description of that. But as someone who has been a qualified social worker for over 30 years and worked ever since the Children Act came was implemented from about 1992. That's a pretty major change in how we organise our services to respond better to families. And there's an expectation that the Safeguarding Children Partnership oversees all that, because the object is that, or the idea is that there are probably too many families caught up in the child protection system unnecessarily. Get help earlier, have less children caught up in the system, and the system better able to better safeguard children. Again, because the kinds of harms and risks that children face now, the current system isn't as best designed for that, like online harm, risks around online, or and it's not just online, it's the people behind that, how they operate in that place. The current system isn't really geared up to that. So we got to really modernise. I'm going to stop there, sorry, because I wasn't planning to speak for long, but I ended up speaking longer than I did.
Thank you. That was great, and it's wonderful to have you here. And I think that the report is excellent. It covers a lot, including statistics, which we like to see on this committee. And clearly, this is important and essential work for the council. So it is great to see the time, effort, and care that's been put into the report, and also your update tonight. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure there's plenty that we'd like to dig into with the time that we've got. I've got some questions, but I'll start by opening it up to members to see if anyone would like to come in. Okay, I'll let Jonathan Clay go first, and then Councillor Bentley.
Thank you. It's just a quick one on one observation that I had. This report, which was up to the period for April last year, and I just wondered, is it a year this report as it's been done several months ago, and
So this is completed several months ago. That's just about, certainly going forward, I'm happy to look at the scheduling of this. So we do an annual report every year. Sorry.
I just want to be clear on that. So this report was put together when?
I don't know the exact date, but this goes to the end of March 2020.
Okay.
So we're in a cycle of we would want to keep these reports probably by the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
So that would be by the end of June, because we're required to
That's
complete annual reports. We're required to publish them.
Sure. So perhaps coming earlier in the
Yeah,
meeting cycle
very happy to.
would be a good thing. Okay. Cool. Yeah, really helpful observation. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, and echo everything, really kind of useful and comprehensive. You mentioned that you're taking over as the chair. I think you said from the police, and you mentioned that kind of serious youth violence had been a kind of priority a couple of years ago, and I think that's something that obviously, we just worry about terribly, and thinking about the cohort that's considered there. But I was wondering kind of what your priorities are, I guess in kind of wanting to be coordinated with what's been before, but really what you think is the most urgent thing that needs to be looked at. You talked about those kind of things like historically looking in the home and those multi-agency points. Is it about really embedding and deepening those, or something else?
So from a partnership perspective, there was a period of change that's happening because we're looking at how we invest in the right support to support the work of the partnership, because it is a partnership. It relies on those other agencies coming together, and we're using the opportunity for the funding that's come in for the transformation that I described earlier, to invest in some extra funding there to get that extra roles there to get the partnership working in a stronger way. But developing an adolescent strategy is part of that, as mentioned in the report. What that means is what we call extrafamilial harm. So it's harms experienced by that young people are at risk outside the family home. One of the opportunities of having multi-agency child protection teams, I think, can really solidify the arrangements that we've got already with the police, particularly, and with health around that. So we have in the council has a extrafamilial harm team and a function around missing children, but we'll have to make that a lot stronger and oversee that from the partnership. So I think that's a key priority. We need to deliver the neglect strategy. We've only just launched that. So there's a multi-agency neglect tool that's used, which is the same one that Lambeth used, because we wanted coherence with what lots of like GPs or schools, they work across borders. So we weren't saying it was necessarily perfect what Lambeth did, but we want to recognise that people need the same tools. So we want to roll that out, the learning around that, and to see whether that makes a change, makes a difference. But a key thing from a partnership perspective is responding to those reforms, because they are pretty major changes to what we do. And we know that there is always risk in a system if you make quite changes. So we need to do them carefully and hold the system while we do that. And Lewisham, interestingly, is what's called a pathfinder. They've already gone through, made this change only in recent months. And there's a lot of work going on to listen to what they're saying in the evaluation. They got some right, some things that they wouldn't do the same again. So we're working closely with them and other boroughs to plan our changes, but taking our time so we can do it well.
Yeah, thank you. One more question regarding harms outside the home. We've all learned with horror the recent report about abuse and neglect in nursery settings. And I would add to that private childminders. Apologies if I overlooked this in the report, but is this something that the council can also have a closer look at to make sure that there are no gaps?
So I read the press report. I've not it was only out, I think, a couple of days ago, wasn't it? The council has a role around early years and childminders and works with that sector. So one of the things that we are planning, because I have responsibility for education services, which is education and early years services as well, including childcare. And we'll make some changes within that education space to look at how we bring early years functions together and have a stronger leadership around early years. I'm about to launch those changes in 2 weeks' time, so I can't say everything about those. But it picks up on the council's Southwark 2030 plan about wanting more focus on early years. Absolutely, safeguarding is a key part of that, and I think there's some really strong leadership within the roles that work with our early years sector, but a lot of it's in the private voluntary sector. So a lot of what we do is about supporting and training that area, but we don't regulate it. So there's a regulator for that area. So we are strengthening that as far as we can by bringing those functions together. And I would also say that it's probably one of the most sensitive parts of the child protection system. So children who aren't verbal, very young children, and in the health part of our system. So I've been in Southwark for over 20 years. I was a lead paediatrician there in health, Dr. Ros Healy. She is still here. She co-chairs one of our subgroups that's described in that structure. So I think there's a very strong approach in health around paediatrics, and my experience of them is that they are really good working with GP settings, working with universal health settings, and they're a bit like, I would say, we are on the council. They're really self-critical. They really look at, they'll look at when things don't go right. So probably as much I can do much.
Quick follow-up. What I would like to know is whether there are regular inspections, including of childminders and private nurseries, if they're ramped up in any way in the wake of these reports, or what can be done to detect. For example, there could be mental abuse, psychological abuse, as well as physical, to detect that in those private settings.
So they're not regulated by the council. So there's not a ability to inspect them the same way. But I'm happy to get a briefing together for the commission on our functions and duties in early years. You have sight on what we can and can't do, and an update on how we what's happened has made us think about our approach there. I take that as a way with me.
Yeah, that would be really interesting, I think. And excuse my ignorance, but who is in charge of regulating those? Ofsted. Thank you very much.
Quickly on that, so if there's an unregulated childminder, so if there's someone childminding illegally, they would notify us, and then we have a response around that. Because regulation means you have to register, you've got lots of standards, and then you can be inspected. But it's just if you're not in that space, it can respond to those.
Interesting. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, then I'll wrap this up. And I think there was one aspect that doesn't feel like we really dug into, and perhaps that's because it's coming, and it's the new government bills that clearly you're thinking a lot about. So perhaps that's something we should bring back as its own agenda item as that kind of moves forward a little bit. Do you think that would be a good idea for us to do?
I think that it would time quite well if you brought the next annual report back, because if that's completed by the end of Q1, I think we'll have more to say. I think, to be honest, at the moment we're digesting it. Why it's not within this report, certainly not strongly, is because the government only last month, March, published the detailed guidance around the programme where it set a lot of this out. So in terms of timing of it, that we're in April now, I think after summer holidays there'll be more to tell, I think, and then I scrutinise them.
All right, great. Thanks. That's really helpful. Well, thanks, Alistair. It's been great to have you. Thanks very much. Have a lovely evening. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the agenda. It's currently 10 to 9. There is a chance that we'll finish at 9 p.m, which would be amazing. However, agenda item 8 is recommendations, and of course this is a really important aspect of the work that this commission does. It is in draft, it is not yet complete. Clearly we've had a packed meeting tonight and there'll be lots more recommendations to come. Just a question, Amit, when was this circulated? So I can have an idea of what I expect in terms of
today.
Today, okay, cool. Which is fine. So I'm not expecting anyone to have read this. If you have, then well done. I've had a glance at it. I certainly haven't had a great chance to digest it. So I don't think it's appropriate for us to spend heaps of time looking into this. One thing that is very clear is the sheer number of recommendations around education versus local economy. And I think that is quite typical of this commission. However, tonight we've had 2 quite chunky items on the local economy side, although of course the youth employment work spans both areas of the work we look at. So I'll open it up to the floor really. Any initial comments on this? And as I say, you're welcome to wait for the full set later if you wish. Jonathan Clay.
Thank you, Chair. I would, the very brief read that I have, number 2 seems to be very, very vague, a bit wishy-washy, and I'd expect us here should be weightiest recommendation. I'll get.
Give up reading.
I would, if there's a chance of reordering, numbers 8 and 11, if they can be elevated further up the order, because I felt those 2 were the governors, they are very important.
Sorry, Jonathan. So I have written them in the order they were taken during the year. It will be jumped up back up.
That's not a criticism. It's
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. I will be putting all the recommendations that are one topic, an explanation. Yeah, this is just a draft, so don't worry about it. Yeah, but fair enough. I've taken your points down.
A fair point to bear in mind as we go through to make sure that does happen, because I agree. So thank you. Did you have another point? Okay.
Yeah, just one, I haven't read it in fully. Yeah, we could definitely get them down into kind of there's too many, I think.
Oh, you think there's too many?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Dense and kind of and punchy and succinct and.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. Councillor Bentley.
Yeah, so one thing that we discussed before we saw these is just making sure we're not repeating previous recommendations, and if we are, if we've made them previously, we'd like to understand why they haven't happened. So I understand that's going to take a bit more, but just I wanted to make sure that we weren't, kind of getting warm words. So yes, we think it's great, but actually then.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we're thinking about is the Scrutiny recommendations tracker, which is new to the Scrutiny system here, I believe, rolled out next year. So that will massively help commissions like ours in keeping track of what has been recommended, what the progress is, and so on. So we'll look forward to that. But in the meantime, certainly as we draft these out fully, we'll compare this with what was submitted last. Councillor Hamber.
I think they're a pretty good set of recommendations for education, but I think they need to be rejigged because there's sort of a muddle between general SEND ones and PHCPs. So I think they need to be rejigged into a more sort of coherent and logical ordering. And I don't think there's enough on the local economy in here. I think we need to expand the local We have to add all the East Street stuff in here, yes.
Absolutely, agree. East Street and the youth employment bits. Well, I'm sure we did have one agenda item on this. Wasn't town. No.
Yeah, but there's stuff missing from here.
Yeah, yeah.
Being the delivery plan.
I wonder if once the minutes are complete,
Yeah.
we'll probably be in a better position to put together a much more comprehensive set of it. Okay. All right. While you're doing that, Jonathan Clay.
There have been more things we've heard relating to education, and we did deep dive on the EHCPs. I think it's totally fair that there's more recommendations for the economy, but I think that we should looks more evenly balanced. I would say 70-30, but this feels like a 90.
Yeah. No, we haven't. Okay. So when we started the year, we wanted to look at two topics. So first of all, it was EHCP backlogs. I think we out a little bit because all of the findings that we had, and then also the town centre action plan piece. It definitely felt to me that the town centre action plan that came to us was quite light. I don't know if anybody recalls it. No, not at all. And I think that that's partly because we wanted to do some pre-scrutiny on it, cabinet, so that we could feed in some of our recommendations. But I think it's an interesting learning for the commission because actually it was so early in the process that it was hard for us to really get our teeth into it, and not much else really came off the back of it. Unlike with the EHCP and the SEND stuff, it just spilled out into so much else. So yeah, interesting one to think about. On that note, next meeting, is that in June? And is that classed as the first meeting of the new cycle?
It's in the calendar. Just bear with me. I'm just not on the council.
But a provisional date is there. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, thank you. No, TBC. TBC. It could be me. It might be someone else. But we shall see. And I guess while Amit, you're doing that, I think it's worth us just moving on to the final agenda item, which is the work programme for the year. I have kind of touched on that. Okay, 7th of July is the next one, which I think means that's the first meeting, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Thanks for helping me with procedural stuff. That's very helpful. So on that note, Amit, just one more question for you to help us wrap up. The proposed work programme, that's reflecting on the work programme we've had, hasn't it? Okay, cool. All right. So what we'll do to close then is we're probably not going to finish at 9. It's very sad. We've got a minute to go. But if any members have any suggestions for the work programme next year, it could be useful to note them now. So, okay. Martin Bracknell.
What I would like to see, please, is where do we stand on the closures is emanating not just for primary, special school. So although we does not have community sector, there is going to be an impact on academies down the line.
Mm.
Already started to affect our church school by the diocese. So I don't think it's just primary. It's going to have a big impact. In fact, it could be bigger on secondary, because if the numbers feed through, which they are, the funding going to secondary will be greatly affected to actually run a school. So I think I'd
Yeah,
like to
really
see it.
interesting.
And also what closures, I know there are several closures coming up this year, but we've not touched on this.
No.
Thing, which I don't have.
Yeah, you're right. Last year the commission looked at quite closures. So, and I think update, yeah, and that foresight looking to secondary, I think would be really smart. I think I saw Councillor Hanbath's hand and then definitely.
Just to add to what you raised, it was just about the special schools. Actually, the demand for special school places in Southwark has been going up rather than going down. So some of them are sort of overcrowded at the moment.
But of course, what the government wants, they want SEND to take place in mainstream schools. They do not. Church of England have put forward a proposal, the last government, that could we start to operate our own SEND schools? At the moment, cannot. This government has said no, clearly no. We want SEND back in mainstream schools. They do not want special schools.
Right. Are you responding to that particular?
Yes, it is.
I'll let you come in briefly.
I'd like to see the Commission actually look at the impact on mainstream schools of having more SEND children come through.
Yeah.
And why we don't have, especially in the school I represent, we're seeing far greater kind of impact. That's the cost, because the cost of having bespoke teaching for them is not actually covered by the council. That comes out of a general school.
That makes sense.
School fund. And this is hitting all of the schools. More SEND children coming through. And the government saying, well, I'm sorry, these have to go into regular schools.
Yeah, great point. Councillor Bentley.
It was to respond to Martin's point that I think I remember asking that question 3 years ago about the secondaries. Like in time, this is going to affect them, and then being told, well, we've only got one kind of local authority run school, so therefore it's not really our problem as the council. And I think we have this role here thinking about young people and education much more broadly. I know we're scrutinising the council's role, but I do think what you've said is really important, because it is just becoming such a massive issue. And then the second point, I think linking these two very distinct issues together. But this SEND issue really is an issue for our local economy. And as I say, really trying to tie those two together, I think, much more carefully. And thinking about the national picture around the number of young people not in work, and a lot of that being linked to potentially autism, some issues around the pandemic, homeschooling, just lots and lots of challenges, and saying, look, how big an issue is it here, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, I think that's a great theme that cuts across all of the topics that have been raised just now. So we should certainly consider that.
Thank you, Chair. One last thing, just backtracking a little bit. So the town centre action plan did go to Cabinet in March. So I can send the Commission a link to review that, and on the back of that, the recommendation you're making. Secondly, I think we should have some recommendations come from Youth Employment Support and East Street Taylor. Yeah. So that will give us a bit more local.
Balance it out a bit more. All right, great. Well, it's 4 minutes past 9. So thank you everyone for making that such an efficient meeting. Good evening. Take care. Bye bye.